Welcome on in, Morning Kickaround Get to Know segment, and today we are going to get to know the Midwest Premier League a little bit better. 53 clubs, 7 divisions, including 17 or 19 expansion clubs in a new region. President of Midwest Premier League, Steve Beckman, joins us now. Welcome to the show, sir.
Morning, guys.
Welcome in, Steve. As not a Midwesterner, and I think I've made this joke before when we've talked about the Midwest Premier League. So wherever there are Midwest Premier League clubs is the Midwest, and no other part of the country is the Midwest. Is that right?
So we use USASA's Region 2. So that's up from the Dakotas all the way down to Kansas, over through St. Louis, Kentucky, up through Ohio, Michigan, over to Wisconsin. That whole region of the world is where we do our soccer.
That is a lot of the country. That's a lot of Midwest for America, Rob. I know you live there, I guess, right? Is Michigan the Midwest?
I do live in the Midwest. Michigan is Midwest. As Steve Beckman, I believe, also Michigander.
Yeah, I'm in Lansing, Michigan. I also help run Lansing Common FC up here, help start the club. And it's one of the things with the Midwest Premier League is we want to make sure that the clubs are in charge of making the decision. So I have to be part of the club if I want to be the league president. So that's how I do my thing.
That's great. Now, I think it's important. I know a lot of our listeners, and this is a self-selection thing, are people very immersed in the level that the Midwest Premier League is operating, and we've covered, various other leagues. But give us kind of a remedial overview of where in the pyramid, where in the structure, where in the levels of the game the Midwest Premier League operates.
Well, everyone likes the visual pyramid, so we'll start on top with the 3 pro divisions. So that's obvious, your MLS and your USL systems. And then once you get below those first 3, it's basically uncharted waters. Like the U.S. Soccer Federation doesn't say anything about anything below 3. So we're all in a big morass at the 4th level. That's semi-professional, that's amateur, that's local, that's regional, that's national. We're all kind of at the same level, but we're at different, divisions of it, going horizontally, not vertically. So we get a lot of, college age players, but we have post-college players. We have guys who are just, they're still at that level of fitness, but they're professionals living out their lives post-school. So like USL League 2, everyone's familiar, gets a lot of Division 1 college players. We're concurrent with that. So they're a national league, like the UPSL is a national league, like the NPSL is a national league, like the League for Clubs is, and we're a regional league. So we don't focus on national playoffs. We focus on being more local. So if there's a club or if there's an area that wants to start a club up, we're an easier way to get into the soccer world. We're much less expensive. We want to make sure that travel is lower, and that the clubs have something to say about what their league is going to do. So we're kind of at that same 4th tier, but we're in the same level doing different things.
And so you kind of, how'd you reference it? The uncharted territory at that level of the game. So with that said, there's a lot of leagues in the mix, and a lot of the reason why we had you on is to really pinpoint what the Midwest Premier League does and who it serves. But who are you in competition with clubs? Because clubs come, like you've expanded, or Midwest Premier League has expanded, but there's also been some teams go the other way. What other leagues are at this level?
Well, the league all started from some former UPSL clubs that wanted to have more say into what their league was doing. So we're kind of at that UPSL level without being national, like I mentioned. So we try to keep things closer. We don't have, overhead for national competition or playoffs. We want to make sure that, we can keep things as close as possible to have more of a community feel for our clubs.
You mentioned sort of the range of the types of players. I mean, obviously, there's a selection thing here too, right? The kind of players these clubs can get are only at a certain level, but you kind of identify that there may be some college players in the summer. There may be some guys that are former college players, ex-pros, even guys who have never gotten a chance to play at a decent level, but can make a team. So that's part and parcel of what you were talking about, where the clubs are making their choices here, right? These are independently run clubs, and you guys have at the league level have no say in what kind of player they're bringing into their teams.
Right. We don't have an age limit other than you have to be 16 or older. So we don't cap it like, USL League 2 has certain requirements for ages of players. We're open to, any range of it as long as, what a club wants to sign up with. So yeah, we've had former MLS players. We've had, high school players who are ascending that are, 18 years old and coming up, or 16. So it's everything in between. It could be, a local league team that decided they wanted to get into a regional competition because it's a higher level of, clubs that they're going to go up against, or it's an outfit like Oakland County FC, which Robert is very familiar with, having a larger roster and having the ability to also have games. So we've added some, clubs that are in USL League 2 that have, they're, not necessarily all their U23 guys, but having another level of the roster that wants to compete. So we want to make sure that it runs the gamut from a corporate club level to a youth club that wants to add an adult team for their college players in the summer, to completely independent like we are at Lansing Common.
And so at the top of our interview, I mentioned that there's 7 divisions, and those are across that large region 2 of the Midwest. So which areas are showing the most growth for Midwest Premier League right now?
Well, over our last expansion window, we added the most clubs in our Gateway and Heartland conferences. So we added 5 clubs from the Kansas City area. So that gave us an additional division down for our Gateway conference, and another 4 clubs around the greater St. Louis area. And then up around Chicagoland, we added 6 clubs. So we added the most in the Chicagoland, but in our conferences, as far as that's concerned, our Gateway conference grew the most.
So you're seeing demand here, right? And this is interesting because, full disclosure, I've done some video work with the UPSL. I've talked to the people on sort of the promotion side, I guess you would argue. There's a certain guy whose job it is to make videos and highlight teams and tell stories about players. And they're always trumpeting, oh, this player went and got a pro contract or whatever it might be. How much of that is part of Midwest Premier League? I mean, how do you think about growth? Is it simply we just want to be a good place for clubs to play and we'll attract clubs if they want to join, or is there an additional level of growing beyond just a regional soccer league?
It's kind of a mix of both. So we want to make sure that we have a number of clubs in a certain geographic area to build out our schedule so they're not, overbearing. So we want to make sure that we're adding in the right places, but then we're also adding the right clubs. So ideally we would, have every community that wanted to have an independent club would have one, because we're available and it's, affordable for a small group to start up. But we want to make sure that where we have our population centers, if we can grow our number of clubs to the point where we can have pro rel within the same conference or within the same division, like we have in our Heartland conference, that's kind of the goal. So we've set it. Our plan was for like the year 2030. We called it our 2030 plan, is that once you hit a number in a certain geographic region, that's where you're going to split into individual divisions with pro rel. Obviously, geography is expansive in the Midwest compared to, your eastern seaboards. So we have to make sure that we're smart about where those clubs are if we're going to implement pro rel, and it means it's not going to be out of hand or too expensive for the clubs that participate to do that. So we got that as our framework. So we want to make sure that when we get those clubs in those areas, they're aware of it. But then you have your outliers that are like 3-4 hours away from everybody else. It doesn't necessarily make sense. So we want to just be a solution for them, not necessarily being strict about how we get there.
That's interesting, and I'm glad to hear that. So, peek behind the curtain, I was able to attend a couple of those early AGM meetings and kind of got to hear a lot of the kind of the brainstorming and what you wanted to be. Like, it's a for us, by us sort of a thing with the clubs. A club-led league that was tired of paying fees and stuff and not necessarily hearing their voices, the voices they air be put into action in any way. In the years since, this is what, year 5 for the league, has that focus on what clubs are concerned about, has that shifted or changed in any way over the last few years?
No, this will be our 6th season coming up this year. So we wanted to make sure that our clubs, have a voice in what they wanted. So a few years ago, there was a proposal to have substitution reentry. So we had clubs that want to do that so they could have additional players, especially if you're making that 3-hour trip to a game, that they're going to get meaningful minutes. They're not just going to sit on the bench the whole time. So that came forward as a proposal from the clubs, which we put out to the entire league. Every league member got a chance to vote on that, whether they wanted to do it or not. And then we do things like that. So if we have ideas about, splitting divisions in a conference, we want every member of that conference to be able to have their voice heard. So we've always stuck to that ethos about making sure that the clubs are in charge of it. Because myself being in Michigan, I don't know what the landscape of Kansas City is like. I want them to be able to make their own choices, but have, a level playing field and everyone's playing by the same rules. We just want to make sure that, those rules make sense every year we go by so that our clubs can make sure they're having their voice heard.
I like this. I think one of the things, and it's far be it from me, I've never run a league, have never been involved in soccer at this level, to say this, but I like that there are clear guardrails on on where it's not about where you want to go. It's like you have those guardrails to kind of make sure that there isn't some outsized plan that eats up everything, because I think so many leagues at this level and obviously higher levels have fallen into that trap, Steve, of, oh yeah, this looks great. Oh, we're going to really go for it now, pedal to the metal. And they get out over their skis. I'm using all the metaphors I can here, and everything comes crashing down. Or in the case of some of the leagues that we've witnessed, they stop, again, representing the interest of the individual clubs. And I think, I guess from your perspective, you just kind of got to accept that there's going to be some addition, and you've got a lot of that now, and some attrition as well, right? And kind of be, say, la vie with that.
Yeah, and like I mentioned, the price point that we're at to make it accessible for clubs to join means that that's not necessarily like an overwhelming financial commitment. Like if you're going to start up, like we'll say a USL League 2 club, you're going to have to put some money into that. You're going to have to make sure that you have a lot of amenities available. You have to make sure that you can cater to your roster. But ours, we're just making sure that you have a club that your locals can come support. Your players can be, staying fit if it's a youth club that's moving into college, or just those college players that are available that aren't in any of the other leagues. We want to make sure that we have all of that stuff available.
So in 2026, year 6 of the Midwest Premier League, outside of seeing those new teams, acclimatize themselves to the league, what kind of are you looking for results wise, or what are you most looking forward to as the president of the league? What do you want to see this time?
Metrics,
when the season's over?
About metrics?
No, I want to see these teams do well. I want to see this or this or this happen. No fights in the games. I mean, what are the goals here?
As the president of the league, I want to see as little discipline as possible. So I want to see our players behaving well and making sure that, we don't have any issues that we have to spend a lot of our personal time on adjudicating, as has happened over years. But as far as that's concerned, the growth in our Heartland Conference, to the point where our second division split off into 2 separate groups because there were so many. After this year, we're probably going to go to a third division. So seeing how that all works out, because only one club from each of those 2 Division 2 groups is going to get promoted in Division 1. So to see what that looks like after this season. So the competition will kind of sort itself out. So our clubs that finish higher in their table or in their groups will probably end up in a second division, and the ones that are lower in a third. And what does that mean towards the end of our season as far as competition is concerned? You always want to say meaningful games towards the end of the season. I think that will definitely drive that in our Heartland Conference. And then in our Gateway Conference, we added so many clubs that we want to see that what level they're bringing. So we know our Kansas City clubs are going to be a little higher on the adult level, so older players, and then we have our college players from mainly the St. Louis area. So what does that look like when they meet in a championship game, that level of play when it finally comes together?
Yeah, that was one of the things I really enjoyed. I did some commentary the last few summers, and seeing the likes of FC Cedars, our Cedars FC, who were those post-college guys, like really good, robust, solid players playing against Liverpool Academy in Pontiac, who were, kids, and seeing that conflict or contrast of player and style was pretty compelling and interesting. Before we let you go, is there anything, folks who are just learning about Midwest Premier League, anywhere you want to direct them to learn more and maybe see if they have a team nearby?
Yeah, I mean, follow us on social. So it's MidwestPL. So a lot of our stuff is on Instagram, Facebook, Blue Sky, X. If you go on our website, if you're interested in joining an expansion club into our 2027 season, we've got a nice big button in the top that says interested teams, join here. So you'll get an application, and you'll get a packet from us that explains, what the requirements are for being in our league, what you're going to expect to spend, what you can expect to experience. Check us out on socials. We want more clicks so we get more eyeballs, so we can get a lot more things coming for our clubs in the future.
Well, Steve Beckman, president of Midwest Premier League, thank you for joining us here on the show today. And then I'm excited for the prospect of OCFC2 playing your Lansing Common. Now, the prospect is now real now that we're in that league. So thank you for joining us here on the show today.
Yeah, of course. Always happy to talk about lower league soccer.
All right.
There goes Steve Beckman. Really good stuff there, Rob.
All right. Thank you to all of our commenters. A lot of people chiming in the chat during that conversation. And we got a new member, Steve Cook, in the mix. Thank you so much for becoming a member. We pulled a little bit of a simul click. You go ahead. Put them on the screen there, Jason. Here we go.
Okay. Are we clanging clangers for members? Is that what
Why
we're
not?
doing
We've been
today?
clangerless during the show today.
I regret to inform you that my wife has stolen my Clank the Clanger shirt. I don't think I'm getting it back. I think it's just hers now. Things
She liked it that much?
things arrived and she was like, "Oh, you bought me clothes." And I was like, "No, these are for the Oh, yeah, okay, well, they're mine." All right. Well, I guess I'll have to get some more. That's how that works.
Yeah, I
Uh,
guess if there's a lady in the house, always buy an extra hoodie because the hoodies always end up being, shifted that direction as well. Great reminder though, while the pre-order or the pre-sale for the jerseys is in, the rest of the merchandise is like the Clank the Clanger t-shirt and the sweatshirts and hoodless sweatshirts like this with the Morning Kick Around theme are available on the store.